In the 1970s, if you walked into a small shop in Columbus, Ohio, you'd see a pair of wooden crutches leaning against a chair. You'd see a man barely 4 feet tall, with hands twisted by a lifetime of rheumatoid arthritis. To an outsider, he looked like a man the world had passed by. But the second the machine hit skin, you realized you weren't looking at a patient. You were looking at a master. This is the story of Leonard Stoney St. Clair, the tattoo saint who proved that grit is the only tool an artist truly needs. Welcome to Skin and Story. I first came across Stoney's work in a collector's archive when I began my obsession over American traditional. Most people only see the bold lines, but I saw the story of a man who was told he'd never walk, let alone create art. And he decided to do both, despite it all. Stoney was born in 1912 in the coal country of West Virginia. Life was hard from the jump, but at the age of 4, it got a lot harder. Stoney contracted rheumatoid arthritis, not polio, as is often misreported. It fused his joints, it stunted his growth to about 4 feet, and it left him relying on crutches and a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But Stoney had what he called a hillbilly resilience that he was damn proud of. At 15, he didn't just run away to the circus, he fought for his spot. The story goes that a traveling carny heard Stoney wanted in, so he shoved a stone poker down his throat to see if he had the stomach for it. And just like that, Leonard became Stoney, the sideshow sword swallower and fire eater. Imagine that transition, from a crippled kid in Appalachia to a circus performer traveling the country. And really, the circus gab, that never left him. He used to say his hillbilly accent paid off like a slot machine. And he was right. Tattooing finally found him in 1928 in Norfolk, Virginia. He saw a sailor getting an eagle on his back, and in typical Stoney fashion, he thought, I can draw a better eagle than that. So he befriended the artist, the legendary Cap Coleman. Coleman didn't just give him a formal apprenticeship. He gave him his blessing. He handed Stoney 2 professional machines and a stack of flash. Stoney took those tools back to the circus, and he set up his first shop, a makeshift stand behind the elephant tent. He spent the next 40 years as a traveling icon, setting up shops in Tampa and New Orleans before finally landing on his famous Stoney's Tattoo Emporium in Columbus, Ohio. This is where the story gets technical. Because of the arthritis, Stoney's hands were twisted and stiff. To compensate, he had to be a mechanical genius. He customized his machines with built-up grips and angled his setup so he could use his limited wrist mobility to pull those signature heavy lines. When clients walked into the Columbus shop and saw the crutches leaning against the wall, they'd hesitate. Stoney would just grin, start the machine, and let his work do the talking. He mastered the greatest hits, the Pharaoh's Horses, the Rock of Ages, and the Rose of No Man's Land. But he also had a sense of humor. He created something that now runs throughout tattoo. He created the Columbus Rat, a little rat smoking a cigarette in a top hat. This has become an underground favorite. Stoney was prolific. He was always painting, always creating new flash. In 1979, the new age of tattooing was coming to visit the old school. The legendary Don Ed Hardy traveled all the way to Columbus to film the documentary Stoney Knows How. There's a legendary moment where Stoney, the old circus hand, gives Ed Hardy a souvenir tattoo, the famous Columbus Rat. Watching the two of them together is like watching a passing of the torch. Stoney was the bridge between the grit of the carnival era and the fine art world that tattooing was becoming. That scene is incredibly powerful for me, to see a young Don Ed Hardy right there in the chair with Stoney on the machine. He was a master storyteller too. In the film, he tells a wild and probably tall tale about a Florida snake handler squeezed to death by his own python. He talked about how the widow made a fortune turning the guilty snake. That was Stoney. He was part artist, part carny, but all heart. When Stoney passed away in December of 1980, the tattoo world didn't just lose an artist. They lost a grandfather. In this culture, we don't just build monuments in stone. We put them in skin. The tribute started almost immediately. Mike Skeever, perhaps Stoney's closest protege, became the guardian of his flame. Skeever didn't just preserve the machines. He turned his museum into a pilgrimage site for anyone wanting to see the tools Stoney had modified with his own hands. The most striking memorials are on the artists themselves. If you look at the arms of the most respected traditionalists today, you'll find Stoney looking back. You might see his portrait, his ball cap and thick glasses. You might see crossed crutches, a symbol of Stoney's refusal to quit. You'll even see that little smoking rat, the Columbus Rat. It's become a secret handshake among those who value old school grit. They call themselves Stoney's Kids. It wasn't a formal club, but a shared identity for those he mentored. They carry his face so that when a young artist asks, "Who's that guy?" the story can be told one more time. Stoney passed away in December of 1980, just before the documentary was released. He never saw the cult status he had achieved, but he didn't care about clout. He cared about keeping it decent and not butchering it up. Growing up in California in the 80s and 90s, I saw the tail end of that old school shop culture. Stoney reminds me that this craft isn't about the gear or the fame. It's about playing the hand you're dealt. Stoney's story shows how far one can go with heart, with resilience, and with hard work. It's as true in tattoo today as it was back then. I recommend you seek out the book, Stoney Knows How, watch the documentary. It was instrumental in my research and is a beautiful book that every tattoo fan and every tattoo shop should own. The next time you see a bold rat in a top hat, remember the guy behind the elephant tent with the stone poker in his throat and the crutches by his side. We're rapidly approaching 1,000 subscribers, and I want to thank all of you for that. Thank you for helping me keep our history alive. The legacy of traditional tattooing lives in our skin and in our story. Thanks for being here. Only